are watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now. Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Frick. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering 30 schools across Northeast Indiana and parts of Elkhart County. As you can see on the screen here, we have a special NE8 title race that will tip off our coverage for this week's boys basketball contest here, as the NE8 race will come down to Friday nights, as these four teams, as you see on the screen, are the remaining teams left in the NE8 race. As things stand right now, Columbia City and New Haven are currently atop of the NE8 leaderboard at 5-1 in conference play. Leo and East Noble just behind them at 4-2 in conference play. There are 8 conference members in total, so every team plays 7 conference games to decide the fate of the Northeast State Championship. Keep in mind, this is the 10th season of the Northeast States, which this conference was formed in the 2015-16 season when Homestead and Carroll departed the old NHC or at least for football and basketball, for the SAC, and then Leo from the ACAC and Huntington North from the North Central Conference joined the newly formed Northeast 8. As a matter of fact, the first year in 2015-16 season saw 4 teams sharing the Northeast State Championship, and those teams included Columbia City, Huntington North, Leo, and New Haven. So far, 3 of the 4 teams that won that first championship are still in play for the conference, except for East Noble, who would not win a NE8 championship until 2017-18 season and would win back-to-back conference titles in 2018 and 19. New Haven has not won this conference since that very first season in a share with Columbia City, Huntington North, and Leo. Leo won the NE8 as recently as 2021, and then last year, Columbia City shared the Northeast State with the Belmont Braves. And that was an exciting year because Columbia City defeated Belmont at the buzzer on a 3-point shot from Aiden Denning that allowed Columbia City to even have a chance to share the conference altogether. When you look at outright conference championships, East Noble's last one obviously came in 2019 in their back-to-back conference championships. Leo obviously last won an outright conference championship in 2021. That is also their last conference championship. As far as Columbia City and New Haven are concerned, their last time they won an outright conference championship actually go back before the NE8's existence. In fact, for New Haven, their last one came in 2014. I believe VJ Beecham was still playing for New Haven at that time, and that was the second to last Northeast Hoosier Conference Championship. And then Columbia City has not won an outright conference championship since the 2006 season. As things stand right now, Columbia City and New Haven are on pace to share the Northeast State, and if they win out on Friday, that share will indeed happen. But keep in mind, on Friday, these two teams that are currently in first place for the NE8, they are going to be on the road against these two teams right here. So on Friday, Columbia City is going to take on the Leo Lions on Friday at the Lions Den, not known for being a easy place for opposing teams to win at, especially in recent years. You look at the season series, at least in the last 40 years, are currently tied at 7 wins apiece. In fact, last season when Columbia City was trying to close out a share of the Northeast State Championship, it came down to the final minute of the game for Columbia City to have a chance to win that conference championship, to which the Eagles were able to defeat the Leo Lions 64-61 to confirm that share of the conference with the Belmont Braves. As for New Haven, they are going to be traveling to the Big Blue Pit to take on the East Noble Knights, who are playing some of their best basketball of the season, are the East Noble Knights. In fact, if you look at East Noble right now, they have won their last 5 games, currently sitting 11-7 overall, and a dangerous team for New Haven. This was a team that once upon a time had 3 of their starters out to begin the season, including an ACL injury for Riker Quake. East Noble started the season 1-5. Ever since then, the Knights, since December the 28th, the Knights have won 10 of their last 12 games, which includes wins over DeKalb, wins over Westview, and a win over Huntington North, a win over Norwell, a win over Dwayner, and Belmont. I mean, Riker Quake is coming off a performance where he had 23 points and 7 threes in that contest for the East Noble Knights. We'll talk about the matchup in a matter of moments here, but the point being is New Haven has a real challenge ahead of them against the East Noble Knights. So why are we even in this situation to begin with? Well, first off, New Haven and Columbia City have a conference loss. So that would play a factor into why we are in this position. So New Haven lost to Columbia City back on February the 1st, 65-57 at the hands of Columbia City. The Eagles, by winning that game, have essentially almost single-handedly established what we are seeing right now. Had it not been for Columbia City's win over New Haven, we're talking about New Haven already have clinched a share of the NE8, and we would have had the fact of there would be a lot more pressure on Columbia City to win this game, and they would need East Noble to beat New Haven. Also, because of Columbia City's win, it kept not only East Noble alive, but also Leo. Two teams that have lost 2 conference games this season. Leo having already lost to New Haven and have beaten East Noble in the regular season, while East Noble already lost to Columbia City and Leo. And then New Haven took care of business against Huntington by the score of 68-58, thanks to a 19-point performance from Jamal Lawrence. And there was a point in time where we thought maybe New Haven and Huntington North would be a crash course of a conference championship. But thankfully, that didn't happen, because now with Huntington North losing their last 3 conference games, the Vikings are out of the conference race. And so now it all comes down to just these 4 teams: Columbia City, Leo, New Haven, and East Noble. What's so fascinating about this particular storyline right now, half of these teams have a new coach this year. Leo with Derek Heinen, Brandon Appleton with New Haven. Ironically, coming from the NECC. Ironically, they were the 2 coaches that coached in the NECC tournament championship game last year, where Derek Heinen and the Fairfield Falcons defeated Brandon Appleton and the Angola Hornets. So there's some very interesting storylines here. You got a young head coach in Brandon Darnell who knows a thing or two about conference championship success from his time at Homestead, whether it was the NHC or the SAC. Brandon Darnell has a thing or two about conference championship history there. And then Columbia City, they are the defending co-conference champions. Matt Schouts obviously just picked up his 100th win as a head coach in boys basketball with that win over the New Haven Bulldogs. But I think when we talk about these matches, I do want to first go ahead and shift over to the matchup coming up between Leo and Columbia City. As you can see here, our first of 2 matches we're going to talk about is Columbia City and Leo. Now, for the Columbia City Eagles, they entered this game at, let me make sure I have this confirmed here. So Columbia City enters Friday 10-8 overall. They have been about 500 as of late. We're talking the last 5 games, 3-2 in the last 5 games. They are coming off a pretty decent game against South Bend Riley, where they only lost by 10 points against a South Bend Riley team that's very athletic, very talented. 15-3 on the season are the South Bend Riley Wildcats. And Stratton Fuller had 20 points in that contest. But when you look at Columbia City, obviously this program at Columbia City has a rich history of boys basketball that dates over 100 years. They've won multiple conference championships, whether it was the NEIC or the NHC, or now recently with the Northeast State. This program has went through a lot of success over these past 100 years or so. When we talk about Columbia City basketball, one of the first things that come to mind is the defense. If Columbia City is going to have a chance to take care of business and win a conference championship for the 2nd consecutive year, the Columbia City Eagles are going to have to play really good defense, particularly in the interior. Leo wants to be able to score inside. That's what Leo's known for. They got some pretty tall kids inside. Sol Richard is one of the best all-around wing players in the Northeast State. He is a player that's really emerged this year as just a straight-up bucket getter for the Leo Lions, really taking the role of a kind of like a Jackson McGee role in a way, but they're not even the same player, right? Jackson McGee was more of a bigger guard, whereas Sol Richard is more of a forward per se. And so you have this intriguing situation with Sol Richard because he is that dual threat type of three-level scorer. He can shoot the three, he can score in the mid-range, he can make tough shots, he can rebound, he can score in the interior. That's what Sol Richard is. He's also an excellent defender, high motor kid. He's going to get after defensively. The kid that you can plug into any situation, and he's going to get the job done defensively. I also think the addition of Jair Sampson does provide Leo some scoring talent to work with, because not only do you have the three-level ability of Sol Richard, but you also have the moments with Jair Sampson where he can have a moment where he can put up some points, but he can also be a guy that can facilitate the play, get involved in the offensive side. He's also a very selfless player. He's a guy that doesn't have to be a guy that scores 20 or 30 points in a game at Leo, because he can be the guy that facilitates the offense. He's also a guy that can get involved from defense to offense. He's a guy that can also be a balanced all-around scorer for Leo as well. You also look at another height shoe in Nolan Height-Shoe, and just like Trey Height-Shoe, Nolan Height-Shoe has a lot of those similarities of Trey, where he's a exceptional ball handler, very talented kid, sometimes doesn't always play to what he actually can provide, but he is a really, really talented player. He's a kid that he can put up some shots from deep. He's a kid that can attack the basket. He can drive it. He can get to the free throw line. He's obviously got good vision, and he's got a good he always plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder a little bit. Always plays with a little bit sense of toughness per se. And Nolan Height-Shoe is obviously the floor general of this Leo team. And for Leo to have success on Friday, you need Nolan Height-Shoe to be involved offensively, and you need to utilize the athleticism of Sol Richard and Jair Sampson. But I also do think the depth of Leo is going to be critical in this matchup because of what Columbia City can do to take away what Richard's good at in the wings position, what they can do to contain Nolan Height-Shoe from the perimeter and contest Jair Sampson's ability to space the floor. I think they're going to need another guy at Leo to merge in this game, whether it is a Landon Ruoff, whether it's a Colton Wallace for Leo. I think there are guys on this team that are going to need to elevate their game per se, and I don't mean elevate as if they have to score a lot of points, but in terms of what they can to contribute and be able to play a good, solid all-around game. Even a guy like Jackson Keller, a guy that we know on the football field, a guy that's a winning athlete at Leo. He's a guy that's going to need to have a nice, solid all-around game for the Leo Lions. Colton Wallace, as I mentioned earlier, is a guy that's going to need to have a solid game himself. Grant Johnson is a guy that has his moments of making a big shot here and there. So the depth of Leo is going to be critical when you're playing against Columbia City, and also the ability to score in second chance opportunities. Gonna have to win some offensive boards. You got to be able to take advantage of those opportunities and utilize the athleticism inside against a Columbia City team that lives and breeds rebounding the basketball. Now, in terms of the thing for Columbia City, they really have to make sure that they are taking care of the basketball. That is number one when it comes to Columbia City. Leo is going to be aggressive. They're going to be a team they're going to switch up multiple defenses. They're going to try different things to try to frustrate you, try to limit Stratton Fuller's ability to get to the basket, to try to contest Landon Richmond inside, which will be difficult because when we talk about Landon Richmond, we're talking about a kid that's 6'5", junior, traditional power forward, can stretch the floor a little bit, but Landon Richmond is a dominant interior scorer in the post, and he is one of the hardest post players to defend because he's got a great neck for the basketball, and he's got a great neck to finding the basket because of his length, because of his height is a problem for a lot of teams. As I was saying, So I think the thing with Columbia City is going to be, obviously, you're going to have to take care of the basketball. They got to be able to maximize their possessions. Got to get good shots. Can't be one and done with their possessions. Got to make sure that every possession is going to lead to a high quality chance, maybe some free throws, get you some offensive boards, really be able to utilize the combination of Stratton Fuller and Landon Richmond. And I think the thing with Columbia City lately also has been, at times with Columbia City, when they go cold, they go really cold when it comes to their scoring depth. Like at times, it could be just Stratton Fuller, Landon, and Richmond contributing offensively. And I think for Columbia City, they're going to need at least 4 or 5 kids that can get you at least 7 or 8 points, because this Leo team will easily take away anything that you have offensively if other players don't step up and be able to make some shots. I look at a kid like Trey Deckman, who can hit some threes. He can have one of his streaks where he can be firing all cylinders, or he can go cold. I think Columbia State is going to need the better Trey Deckman in this game, because I think Leo is going to contest them inside. They're going to be physical. They're going to contest them in the glass. They're going to have to make some shots. Doesn't necessarily have to be a 3-ball per se, but you definitely need to make some shots, and you definitely want to make sure that your possessions are productive. It's not just you're not just rushing shots. Again, I look at a kid like Olin Marshall. He's a kid that needs to have a solid game, be able to utilize his vision, his athleticism, and be able to be aggressive inside against this Leo team, because Leo is going to have the height. They're going to have the athleticism. So players like a Marshall and Deckman, they're going to have to be prepared and be ready to take those opportunities when they come. And that's the thing with Columbia State. The defense is going to obviously have to be key. You got to take care of the basketball. And then lastly, I think you need at least 2 or 3 other players to help support Stratton Fuller and Landon Richmond, because when this team gets a nice 5 or 6 balanced players getting some offense, they're a much more dangerous team when that happens. But I think they're really going to need it against this Leo team, because I think Leo's height is definitely going to cause some issues inside, and they're going to challenge Columbia State's ability to score in the interior because of what Leo is in terms of their defensive structure. And that's a Derek Heinen thing from his time at Fairfield. And remember, Derek Heinen is a Columbia City guy, so he knows a thing or two about Columbia City basketball. So this is going to be a fascinating matchup to see how things play out. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at New Haven and East Snowball. And last week, or at least it was supposed to be last week, which later was pushed to Tuesday, that was the ANEC game of the week, Huntington North at New Haven. And the New Haven Bulldogs were able to get what they want, and really for New Haven, one of the rare things that New Haven won in that game was their ability to score on second chance opportunities. This is a New Haven team that they're not great on offensive rebounding. They don't rebound the ball particularly well. And that was one of the things that really impressed me about New Haven, was not only that they were able to get some timely scoring from a Darian Cryer, right? Or Lavelle Ledbetter, right? Obviously, Jamal Lawrence was great in that game, and Jadrian Ezel was obviously solid as usual, and Tavar Baskerville was the solid floor general as he usually is. Dalen Jackson scored in double figures as well for New Haven. And I think that's the thing you're going to need here, is you need to be able to utilize the depth and the bench of New Haven, because of just how strong and front-loaded this East Snowball starting 5 is. And when East Snowball's healthy, they are a very dangerous team. We look at New Haven, they're 10-9 on the season. And by the way, Leo is 10-6. Leo has now won their last 4 games. But like I said, coming up an overtime loss to Angola, I think the Banyan is very interesting matchup with Columbia State. Now let's get to New Haven. 10-9 on the season are the Bulldogs. They have traded their losses here and there, but generally speaking, they have won 3 of their last 4 games. Again, the loss of Columbia City really sticks out, because that's a massive loss for New Haven, which is why we are talking about this game right here. Because I said this back when we were previewing this matchup against Columbia City, that if it comes down to Friday night at East Snowball could be the big wild card of this whole thing. And right now, we are seeing it exactly as I feared for New Haven. And now the New Haven Bulldogs are going to have to win at the Big Blue Pit, something they struggled with in recent memory. If you go back to New Haven's recent history, they have not won at the Big Blue Pit in what it'd be 4 years now. Since the 2020-21 season, they beat East Noble 54-42. So it's been a couple years since New Haven has been successful against the East Noble Knights. As far as East Noble's concerns, I mentioned earlier, East Noble is 11-7. They have won 10 of their last 12 games, 5 in a row. So, New Haven, what's going to be the thing for New Haven that we need to look at here? For the Bulldogs, obviously, we talked about this for New Haven. One of the first things New Haven's going to have to do well is they're going to have to make sure that they're not settling for shots. New Haven has to be able to utilize their athleticism, be able to utilize the quickness of Jamal Lawrence, the dual threat ability of a shooter like Jadrian Ezel, and the aggressive high motor players like a Lavelle Ledbetter, a Darian Cryer, right? And help Tavar Baskerville be able to best utilize his ball handling, floor making ability, get others involved. And I think the thing I liked hearing from Brandon Appleton was that this team is finally starting to figure out a lot of things beyond just basketball. They're starting to think at a higher level at New Haven. And I think that is something you always want to hear when you have a young team that's learning how to win, is be able to play at a level beyond just the concept of basketball. And that's something that I think is encouraging for a team with so much potential that New Haven has. So they need to utilize the athleticism. That's obviously going to be key. Number two, the other thing with New Haven is going to be they got to be able to get good defensive stops. They got to contest their shots. They cannot leave shooters open with East Noble. This is an East Noble team that can shoot 40% from three. They don't need many chances to do it. That's the thing about East Noble that's very dangerous, is they are not a team that will just live and die by the three. They are a team that they will be very careful about their shot selection, but they have players that can knock down shots at a high rate. We talked about Nathan Boker for so many games now where he's a kid that can shoot right in the upwards of 30% from three. And we talked about Nathan Boker. He is kind of the archer of this basketball team. He's just dropping darts every time he's getting the ball in his hands, and he feels good, and he's got that green light to shoot the basketball. That's the type of player that if you're in New Haven, you need to make sure you don't let Nathan Boker get those looks. He's way too talented a basketball player to give him open shots. He is crafty. He is confident. He knows exactly what he's going to do in the basketball. And if you try to foul Nathan Boker, for the most part, he's going to make his foul shots. So New Haven is going to have to guard him tightly. And I think the same is going to have to be the case for a kid like Riker Quake. If you knew anything about Peyton Quake, then you know exactly who Riker Quake is. Riker Quake is a dual level big, right? He is athletic. He is quick, but he's strong. He's physical. He's a player that can play through the physicality, but he also can show you the finesse style. He can shoot the three. He can score in mid-range. He can get you those tough baskets, but he can also be a kid that can also get the stops defensively, get involved in transition. And that's the thing that has really helped East Noble get their game back. Is ever since Riker Quake came back to the East Noble team off of that ACL injury, it's like the entire thing with East Noble changed drastically from that point forward. Because you have to remember, when they began the season, they were playing with very, very little depth whatsoever. They were playing players that were not experienced, and frankly, they really shouldn't, on a normal situation, would not be playing major roles on this team. But because of injuries suffering from the fall season, they had to start the season with a very, very tight bench. And they went through their losses. They went through their struggles. And now their Riker Quate's back, and Landon Swager's back, starting to feel good. Mason Trish is back. He's starting to feel good about himself. And now Quake is starting to get hot. And this is why I'm worried about this matchup for New Haven, is if Riker Quake is putting up the points like he's been putting lately. And I'll just show you the last 3 games that Riker Quake has posted on his highlight reel. 23 points, 2 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 assists, 1 block, 6 threes, right? And that was in a game. Let me make sure I confirm this real quick. That was against the Bishop Dwayne Saints. He had 8 points, 3 assists in the 8-point win over Belmont, 68-60. And then he had 22 points, 1 rebound, 1 steal, made 7 threes in the 61-46 win over Norwell. So as you can see here, this is a very difficult matchup for New Haven because of what East Noble can do, space in the floor, be able to be patient offensively. But now they have players beyond Nathan Boker that can let it fly from deep. A Swatter, a Quake, a Boker, a Trish. Alex Scott can make some shots here and there. Although primarily he's going to score inside more than anything else. You got multiple players that can do it. And and by the way, Kobe Ritchie still plays for East Noble, and he's one of the baddest dudes on this team. He's big, physical, he's a workaholic, and he's a guy that is a magnet for the basketball. He's a kid that's going to get you 7, 8 rebounds on a good night, 12, 13 points. He doesn't need a lot of shots to do it. And that's the thing that makes East Noble very difficult. They don't need a lot of volume shots to beat you. And that's the thing that New Haven is going to have to be careful, because I do know on paper East Noble is going to be very careful about their shot selection, because they know they don't want New Haven to go out and transition and be able to utilize their athleticism and their explosive play. So for East Noble, the first thing they're going to have to do first and foremost is limit New Haven's possessions. You've got to limit their possessions. You've got to be able to keep them off of transition. You've got to limit Jamal Lawrence's ability to fly to the basket, limit Tavar Baskerville's playmaking ability, and you've got to contest Jadron Ezel and Lavelle Ledbetter. So I think one of the things is they're going to have to be able to play a physical game defensively as well. Get Lawrence off his game, get Baskerville off his game, frustrate Ezel, frustrate Ledbetter, and limit that scoring depth of New Haven. Force Lawrence to have to do more for this team. Force Baskerville to have to do a little bit more with the basketball. Because East Noble defensively, they're going to have to be able to be smart and disciplined against this New Haven team because of that athletic prowess, because New Haven does have the potential to make 7, 8 threes of their own. This is one of those interesting matchups where this could go to the 70s, maybe even the 80s. I don't know if it'll go quite the 80s, but this is a game that could definitely play into the 60s, early 70s. So I think for East Noble, the big thing is you're going to have to space the floor well, be disciplined defensively, right? Don't gamble defensively. And then lastly, for me, if you're East Noble, is I really do think they need to be smart about their possessions and take good shots. Don't rush it. Don't let New Haven's press overwhelm you, right? That would be something, if I was me, I would make sure that East Noble's guards are composed and understand how to deal with the press of New Haven. That is something that if I'm East Noble, I'm keeping an eye on the ball handling and be able to utilize a good shot selection against New Haven. But I do think if this is a game that goes into the 50s, this is very much in East Noble's territory. But if it goes 60s, 70s, I think this favors New Haven more. But I think both of these games, as we get things wrapped up with our coverage of our NE8 title race here, I do think when it all boils down to it, I do think we're going to have 2 exciting games here. And, we could have a situation where Columbia State and New Haven share the conference. We could have a situation where Columbia State, New Haven, or either of those 2 teams winning the conference outright. Or we could also have the potential of both Leo and East Noble winning their games, and we have a 4-way share of the Northeast State, which would be just an incredible way to cap off a crazy season of NE8 boys basketball. But I think this should be 2 exciting games in Leo and East Noble as we conclude an exciting Northeast State race for boys basketball. Stay tuned. I will have a article that will go a little bit more specific and in depth about the keys to the game for both the Columbus City Leo game and the New Haven East Snowball game. But until next time, this is Sam Fritz saying so long. Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.